Okay, so this topic gained a lot of controversy.
Okay.
You recently posted a picture of you wearing a hat, a nice bright red hat that
Yeah.
said, what?
Make women female again, I believe that's what it says.
Okay, you
Yeah.
want to explain the hat first, and then we'll get into it more?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat self-explanatory, where women are women, men are men. Biology, hashtag science. Obviously, it comes up with the topic of, well, transgender, but transgender in sports is what I've been really focused on for obvious reasons. And all of a sudden, it's okay to have biological men playing women's sports. And I strongly disagree with it. I think that it is nothing against the transgender community. I think that that's something that has to really be discussed and worked out. Like, they absolutely need a safe place to play sports. Not, however, at the expense of women's sports, as we know the facts and the science that men are stronger, faster, etc. than women, and that's okay. We are better at a lot of things than men, but the physical facts, the biology, should not be ignored, and we are great as is, but men, stay out of our sports.
Thank you for explaining that. Because I do feel, I even personally got a lot of people reaching out to me, knowing you, knowing us, and being like, listen, I love Sage, but I'm struggling with this post. And I asked, like, well, why are you struggling? And a lot of times it can come from a very personal space. They might have someone who is transgender. They might have a child who is non-binary, so it can be a trigger. If you look at just the picture and not any of the context of what you explained the picture to be to you, it can come across as being transphobic.
Yeah, and that's insanity to me. If people need to take a deep breath, number one. Number two, look at the words. And number three, be honest with ourselves about what the actual facts are. What bothers people, I think, the most is that it's a red hat that resembles the Trump Make America Great Again hat. You know what? I guess the creator of the hat, designers, they did a good job. They got the attention. That certainly gets your attention. But that doesn't mean that people who buy the hat, and there have been a lot of people who've bought that hat. First time I saw it, by the way, was when Megyn Kelly wore it in the spring.
Same.
And same thing, that blew up. And I loved it because from day one, as a woman in sports, when I was the only woman, not even playing, I'm talking about, as a sportscaster, and in the mid-90s when there were so few women, especially local regional sports, I know what that feels like to be the only one and then to be kind of counted out. And so in general, I've always been a huge advocate for women. When I was at ESPN, I was kind of the face of the ESPN W Summit, W for Women's Summit, where we're uplifting women and celebrating our differences and trying to fight for equal pay compared to men, all of the things. And then all of a sudden, everybody, including people who run that summit, who are part of that summit, athletes at that summit, are silent about keeping our space as women ours. And I am done with the hypocrisy in that. Once again, this does not mean that you are anti-trans in any way. This means there is a difference, and women's spaces are ours, and men need to stay out. It's just very simple to me, and people are making it tougher than it has to be.
Do you think those that have been silent and have been vocal about women's rights and silent about this topic are afraid of getting canceled? Because we do live in a very strong cancel culture.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. What did they tell you, the ones that reached out? Because some of them I've heard from in the past, and I know you have too, where it's like, and I get texts all the time from people who are in our industry, who all of us know, who are like, man, I wish I could say that. And here's the thing. I understand the fear. I stayed silent for so many years about so many things. There have been so many things that I edited, or I would write the tweet and then it's delete, or everyone has a choice to make, and I respect that choice. My problem is when you pick and choose for the same topic. It's like all those women and men and executives and athletes who are out there and front and center for, yes, women's sports and soccer and the WNBA and all these things. Then it comes to this, and all of a sudden you're okay with it. One of my favorite things, honestly, is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's joke Chappelle, talk about being uncancelable.
There's no boundaries.
There are no boundaries, but what that joke went viral, and I don't even know when he did it, but it was certainly more recently when he's like, okay, yes, transgender, come on, everybody come on in and play together. And then what does that mean? That means, okay, LeBron James decides he's going to be a woman, which means he has to do what? Play in the WNBA, where he's going to proceed to score 856 points a night. We're good with that, right? Like, what is the line,
I
guys?
definitely wouldn't want to play against him. I'm
Right.
just telling you
I
as a
wouldn't
woman.
either.
No, thank you.
And so we're picking and choosing when women matter. And I call BS on the hypocrisy of that. So to go silent now when this isn't even opinion. We are dealing with straight facts, facts, and people are suddenly silent. And can I just say this? I am sad only because I feel like if women and men, you've been there with us, right?
They have daughters.
Absolutely. Most of the analysts and guys that I worked with at ESPN for all those years have some really talented athletic daughters. You tell me that they're going to let some 6'4" volleyball player come and play? Probably not, I'm guessing. My point is if all of us came together on these facts, the biological, beautiful differences in all of us, I think this would stop. But people are afraid. I understand why you're afraid, but guess what? Can't complain then when this continues to blow up.
I think we're afraid of even saying, like, maybe we don't have an answer on how to handle this right now. Instead, they go to the exact extreme.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say, okay, we want everyone to include everyone. We want to be inclusive.
Yes.
We understand. I mean, I don't know what it's like. I can't even imagine living in my body feeling something different for the rest of my life.
I can't either.
I think it's torturous. I feel sad for those people. I want them to live their truth. Absolutely. But we also have to understand that it's not just about one person or one group. It's about all of us.
And the percentages, by the way, of transgender athletes versus all athletes, male, female, small. The point is, and everyone's like, well, then why do you care? Don't let it bother you. Okay, you say, why do you care until it is your daughter or your son who loses that spot on the team, who's hurt. We saw what happened in Massachusetts recently. We've seen what happened on volleyball courts. And then how about just overall competing, and whether it's women's powerlifting and all of a sudden biological men are allowed in there for powerlifting. They're always going to win. They're setting records up in Canada, and apparently it's just fine. I just want consistency. You can't pick and choose when you're going to support women. And I'm saddened by it because you're right. We're not going to have the answers. This is new.
Right.
This stuff didn't really exist. This wasn't a thing 20 years ago because where the conversations about transgender in general, much less in sports, weren't being had. And I'm glad that they're being had now. But let's continue to have them so we don't take away from all the work that so many people have done and sacrificed with Title IX from 1972. And now we just continue to go backwards while people sit there and watch. But you know what? They talk about it quietly. They just won't do it in front of a microphone or on X or on social media at all. And to me, that is when we are partially responsible then for the demise of women's sports.
Yeah, and we need to find a solution on how we can be inclusive for all groups without compromising the other. I think that's the biggest.
And as someone who's been, I agree with you, as someone who's been trying to empower women. By the way, I have daughters who played sports and nieces and neighbors and people millions of girls I'll never meet. I feel that because I've had this platform for so long that if I don't speak up, what a waste. And shame on me, even if I've been canceled so many times, it's fine, bring it. Like, I'm not afraid anymore. And so therefore, while I still have some sort of a platform left, let me use it to continue to help young women and girls that I've been trying to help for almost 30 years. And I'm not going to stop because deep down, everybody knows what the science is.
Have you, I don't know personally, and you probably know better than me, like other athletes, you look at Caitlyn Jenner, what she went through. Other athletes that have come forward and spoken about this and their take, whether they're part of the transgender or...
Martina Navratilova.
Yes, exactly. What have they said?
They're against this for obvious reasons.
The same reasons.
Yeah. And I think we're just being honest about it. And by the way, Martina and I, and she may not even know who I am, we think differently on pretty much every other topic. But for this, we cannot be in denial of the facts and of the science and of biology. That's one of the things that cracks me up over the past 3 years since COVID. Follow the science, follow the science. And once it's a little bit uncomfortable for stuff that's factual, like then people go quiet. So it just makes me sad. And then there's so many of these young women who have been forced to stand there and forced to embrace that biological male standing next to them in the first place spot on the podium. And they're being told by administrators, teachers and coaches, just stand there and accept them or else. And so they're young women. If adults are afraid to speak up, of course these teenage girls are going to, for the most part, be afraid to speak up about it and say, wait a minute, I've worked really hard. What about me? And what about all that effort I've put in? And go girls, and uplifting our girls. And now the adults in the room, male and female, are quiet. And I'm not going to be quiet about this one.
Well, it comes down and back to what we've talked about with other topics. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations to sometimes find a solution. We also cannot cancel people for feeling uncomfortable about something that is, it may not be new to that person that is obviously living in a transgender body and trying to figure it is. I don't want to discredit them at all. They have been dealing with it their whole lives, but it can be new to others, and especially in the sports world. And we have to give everyone a little bit of grace and time to adjust and figure out how we can make everyone coexist together in a way where it's fair.
And I think that they're throwing a lot out there, and it's, okay, I want to be called a she now, even though I'm biologically a he. This is my new name. This is my pronoun. Dress how you want. There have been a lot of concessions, and that's fine. I will respect what you want for the most part. I'm not a pronoun person. I'll call you by your name. That's just how I am. But go do you. I say that about a lot of things, don't I? Go do you. But at the end of the day, there are lines. But I don't think it's fair at all, or even close to accurate, to make a generalization that because you're protecting women's sports, that equals that you're anti-trans. Megan Rapinoe, the lovely Megan Rapinoe, called me out with Martina and Dave Chappelle and said, people like Sage and Martina and Dave are promoting violence against trans people.
Absolutely not.
By standing up for female athletes. Again, I didn't even acknowledge at the time because I think she's a waste of time in that way. Frankly, it's sad because she's been brilliant in her career. Brilliant. Fortunately, I can separate an incredible athlete that has helped change the game, the beautiful game, who is just, I have nothing for her in that way, especially when she generalizes and says people standing up for women. And oh, by the way, women like her who have benefited from the fight, Title IX, and from women's sports. So it's amazing how now that her career is over, she's like, no, let all the guys in, go for it. But that's just shameless and uneducated and very pandering to say that if you're standing up for women's sports, that you're anti-trans. But I'm not surprised with that from her.
I mean, I know you are not. So I wanted to give you that chance to really elaborate more on it because I think it's important.
So you got some questions.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, I'm all about I want people to live their best truth and live your lives, but we all have to be respectful of everyone else around us and know that we can't. If I wanted to become a man, I can't fertilize an egg and produce sperm. I can't. I could do all the things. I could go through the transition. I could change my name. You could accept me as that, but there's still limitations to all of us, and that is life.
Yes.
And it's everyone gets an award sort of thing. That's how I look in class. Everyone gets an award.
The best part is that, with the sports thing, why is it only going one direction? Why aren't women trying to go play full contact sports? It's one thing to have a female kicker, a field goal kicker, play with the football team in high school or even college. We've seen some of that. But why aren't there women trying to go play in the NBA or the NHL? No. First of all, we have done a great job of creating female leagues that are doing quite well in many ways. But it's funny that it only goes one direction, where the guys want to come invade the girls' sports. Why would that be? Oh, because they can win there because they're biologically stronger and faster. So until we see this going both ways, which we won't, I can't.
On that note, let's hope we can come up with a solution in the future. And if
I
you
love
have,
that question. I love that.
Yeah, it was a great one. And if you guys have any more questions, please throw them at me. I'm ready for them. Email me, Tiffany@sagesteel.com, and I will pick the best of the best or the best of the worst to ask her.